This is Advanced Math 11.1. This is our conics unit. Conics has 4 shapes, and it's called conics unit or conics sections because these 4 shapes that we deal with are shapes that can be cut from a cone. Depending on how you slice the cone, you get 4 shapes. One shape is a circle. Obviously, if you cut right across horizontally, you get a circle. Diagonally, an ellipse. And different ways you can get as well a parabola and hyperbolas. All those different shapes we're going to see in the weeks to come. So, starting today with the basic circle. You dealt with conics last year in Math 3. Very little. I think you just had parabolas and maybe a circle. Very little. We will be doing a lot more in Advanced Math. A lot more than what you did in Math 3. A lot. This unit will be very heavy in formulas and very, very heavy in graphing. A lot of graphing, a lot of formulas. We're ready?
No.
What was that? Not worksheets. Yeah, you do have to do a lot of drawing, yes. Usual amount of homework.
Yeah.
We had used stuff on the homework. There used to be more. I've taken off a lot over the years.
You should take off like 100%.
All right. So, I am going to draw 11.2, which would be starting parabolas. The first day. It'll be 2 lessons because it's block day. So it'll be 2 lessons of parabolas. On Monday, yes. It's block day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday next week. All right. We're ready? Okay. Definition of a circle is what we're going to write down here. And it is the set of all points equidistant from a fixed point. What does equidistant mean? Equal distance? Okay. What is this fixed point? It's the set of all points equidistant from a fixed point. What's the fixed point called in that circle? The fixed point is called the what? The center, and then the distance over and over is called the what? The radius. Okay. And then the set of all points, there's the set of all points is what makes the circle. The circumference of the circle, yes. Make sense? Okay. So I'm going to draw here an x and y axis, and I have my circle, and I have my center, and I'm going to call that point on my center point h comma k. circle x comma y. I'm going to call it point P for point x comma y. And I'm going to call the distance between those 2 points. Instead of calling it D for distance, I'm going to call it R for radius. Does anybody remember the distance formula? It's D equals something. D equals, instead of D, I'm going to use R because I'm calling my distance here R. R equals, it's the square root of, you subtract your x values and square it. So let's do that. Subtract the x values. X minus h, those are my 2 x values. It's quantity squared. Plus, and then I do the same thing to the y coordinates. Y minus k, and it's quantity squared. That's the distance formula. D for distance, I'm using R in this case. D equals the square root of the difference between the x values, quantity squared, plus the difference between the y values, quantity squared. Does any of that come back to you guys? You guys remember the distance formula? Have you used it in other classes before? Maybe not. It's okay. All right. So, would you guys agree that this is the radius, therefore the radius should equal the distance between the center and any point on the circle? Yes? Okay. What would I do to both sides to get rid of the square root? Square. So I'm going to square here and square here. And the only thing I'm going to do is rewrite it so these variables are on the left side and my r is on the right side. So it looks like this. X minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equals r squared. And this here is the formula for my circle in standard form. Okay, and then the center is always going to equal HK, and the radius is always going to equal R. So the center is going to equal the opposite of the inside for both of them, and the radius is going to equal the square root of whatever that number is there. So if that number is 25, the radius will be 5. If that number is 7, this will be the square root of 7. If this number here is 8, then this will be 2 root 2. Got it? Whatever this number is, that's going to be this, the radius will be the square root of that number. Okay. We're going to go through and try some examples. Questions on the formula in standard form. All right, we are going to find the equation of the circle in standard form. Find the equation of the circle in standard form. Number 1. The center is at the origin What's the ordered pair at the origin? 0, 0. And the radius is 9. All right, now if the center is at the origin, I'm going to have x minus 0 quantity squared plus y minus 0 quantity squared. So do you guys agree that would just become x squared plus y squared? Right? Do you guys all see that? Because x minus 0 quantity squared is just x squared, y minus 0 quantity squared is just y squared. Equals 9 or equals 81? Or 3? What would I put there? If the radius is 9, what would I put here? What would I put? I would put 81. Because the radius is always the square root of this number. So if this is 81, the radius would be 9, which is what they gave us. Got it? Questions? All right, let's try another one. Number 2. Center equals 3, negative 4. Remember, you take the opposite of each. And r for the radius equals 3 root 2. Go ahead and start to put those in. All right, when you write it, would you guys put x plus 3 or x minus 3? It's always the opposite, so minus quantity squared plus y plus 4 quantity squared. Now when you write this, it's going to be this squared, so it's up to you on how you write it. 3 root 2 squared, and it's not just 3 root 2 squared like that. You do want to put it in parentheses squared, and it's up to you on how you square it. You can distribute the exponent, 3 squared, root 2 squared, or think it through like this. Up to you on how you process it. 3 times 3 is 9. What's root 2 times root 2? Root 2 times root 2 is just 2, right? Because the radicals undo each other. And this comes out to be 9 times 2 is 18. Did anybody else get 18? Did anybody do it differently and not write it the way I did, just did 3 squared and then root 2 squared and still got 18? Did anybody kind of do it in their head? Okay, and again, perfectly fine. Equals 18. Okay, questions? All right, number 3. Center is negative 5 comma 2, and the diameter is 4 root 5. I'm going to have you guys hold on, don't leave yet. I need to give you something. I'm going to have you guys go ahead and try that one. Work with your shoulder partner. All right, did you guys at least get this? X plus 5 quantity squared plus y minus 2 quantity squared. Yes? Any volunteers want to tell me what you did next? Yes.
Diameter is twice the radius, so we need to put the diameter over 2, and the 4 and the 2 reduce, so the 2 to the bottom, and
Okay, everybody hear him? Anybody else? Something different, the same? Any suggestions? Okay, so he said cut in half and then square it. You said the square root of this?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you want to say, okay, so she said isn't the diameter radius squared anyway, so leave it as it is? Okay, anyone else? Anyone I feel like I just have no idea what to do anyway? Okay. A lot of what you guys are saying are what kids in my last class said as well. Some kids said the same thing. Isn't it diameter radius squared, so leave it alone. Okay. Diameter, let's get a visual. Is that the radius? Is that the diameter? Diameter is twice the radius, so radius is half the diameter. So what do? If they give us the diameter, we cut it in half. So we do what Alex said was, no. What was that? I know, I was fixing it. What Braden said, and we cut it in half. So Braden said you take it, cut in half, and you said you got 2 root 5, right? Okay, so radius equals 2 root 5, and then you said to square it, right? And you get what? 4 times 5, which is 20. All right, so if you guys didn't do that already, do that now. Five after, I believe.
Isn't that normal?
Oh, 12:04. That's normal on a block day. Today's not a block day, so 12:04.
No, it's just 1.
Mm-hmm. All right. Write the equation in standard form. Find the center and radius. All right, it's 16x squared over 3 plus 16y squared over 3 equals 1. In standard form, I'm going to move this really quick. It looks like this. It's okay to have like plus or minus numbers in parentheses, but you shouldn't have any like leading coefficients either in the front or at the denominator of the x or y's. So the 16 and the 3's are not okay. How you get rid of them is up to you. You can get rid of them all in one shot by multiplying by the reciprocal. I've had kids get confused when I do it that way, so I'm going to get rid of them one step at a time. I'm going to first get rid of the 3's. Would you guys agree? I'm going to get rid of the 3 by multiplying both sides by 3. Yes or no? Okay. You can do it like this and distribute the 3. I'm just going to distribute the 3 like this. Multiply everything by 3. It reduces here and here, and I'm left with 1 times 3 on the other side. 16x squared plus 16y squared equals 3. What do I divide both sides by? 16. Reduce, reduce. And I am left with x squared plus y squared equals a fraction, and it's okay to have it a fraction on the other side as long as I don't have fractions or coefficients on this side. This is my equation of my circle in standard form. What's the center? Thank you, it's 0, 0. And the radius is the square root of the top over the square root of the bottom. The square root of the top is just going to be what? Square root of 3. What's the square root of the denominator if it is a perfect squared? What is it going to be? Does everybody see how we get root 3 over 4? Square root of 3 over square root of 16 becomes root 3 over 4. Questions? All right, we're not done. Okay. Anybody need this up a little bit longer before I move on to the last 2 problems? Do you remember that unit we did complete the square, and I gave you the choice to complete the square or use quadratic? How many of you guys chose quadratic instead of complete the square? Okay. Is that just because you didn't like complete the square? Okay. This is the unit where we have to learn it. So if you didn't like it before, you are going to be forced, absolutely forced, to know how to do it now. Were you done? Okay. Number 5. 9x squared plus 9y squared plus 54x minus 36y plus 17 equals 0. Okay. Now, not only are we going to complete the square here, but we're going to do like a double bubble, like a double whammy, complete the square. We're going to do it twice within one problem. Now, before we go into complete the square, I'm going to tell you this. We're going to have 4 conics by the time we take the test. Parabolas, circles, ellipses, hyperbolas. And on the test, I'm going to give you one of each and ask you to name the shape. Name the shape. Is it a parabola? Is it a circle? Is it an ellipse? Is it a hyperbola? And you need to be able to look at something like this and know the shape. Right now, all we have is circles. But how do you know what the shape is? I will tell you right now, parabolas are the easiest to recognize because parabolas are the only shape that have only one variable being squared. Do you see how this one has an x squared and a y squared? Can you guys see that? Parabolas have only what? Only x squared or only y squared. So those are going to be the easiest ones to find. After that, circles are the second easiest because circles have 2 squared, but their leading coefficients are the same. You see how there's a 9x squared and a 9y squared? That's what makes it circular. When they're different is what makes it elliptical, like longer this way or longer that way. So right now, circle's all we have, but when we have all the other shapes, how do you know it's a circle? There's an x squared and a y squared, and the leading coefficients are the same. All right, so how do we get this in standard form? We get anything that does not have a variable to the other side, and sometimes there is no variable. This case there is. What does not have a variable? You're going to get the 17 to the other side, and you're going to regroup. X squared with the x, y squared with the y. Sometimes there's like an x squared and no x, or a y squared and no y. In this case, we're going to regroup. Okay, so I have 9x squared plus 54x plus 9y squared minus 36y equals negative 17 because I moved it over to the other side. Got it? Now, I'm going to complete the square twice, here and here. And if I said earlier, if there was only, like say there was no x, there was only an x squared, not an extra x, I would only be completing the square here. I would not be completing the square twice. But since I have an x squared and an x, a y squared and a y, I'm completing the square twice. Now, here is what we do that we did not have to do before. This one is a little bit more complicated than what we've seen, so I need everybody paying attention. Are you ready? You cannot complete the square with these numbers in the front. All the complete the squares we've had have been just x squared, not a 9x squared. So what you have to do is factor out the leading coefficient. I do not call it a GCF because I'm not taking out a 9x, even though there is a GCF of 9x. I'm only factoring out the leading coefficient of 9. Why not 9x? Because I need the x inside to complete the squared. Why do I factor out the 9? Because I cannot complete the squared with the 9 inside. X squared plus what? 6x, is that what I heard? And then I put my plus blank because that's what I'm going to complete the squared. Plus, what am I going to factor out here? Also a 9. Not a 9y, same thing. I need the y's, the y squared and the y in there to complete the squared. I always just factor out the coefficient. Y squared minus what? 4y plus blank equals negative 17 plus blank plus blank. Why do I have two blanks on the right hand side? Because I'm completing the square twice, correct. All right. Before I go any further, any questions? Okay. Do you guys remember the rule on how we find the blanks, what we do to these numbers here? Yes. Do you guys remember that? Divide by 2 and square them. So what's 6 divided by 2? And what's 3 squared? What's negative 4 divided by 2? Negative 2. And what's negative 2 squared? I often have the kids say, will these always be plus? Yes, because when you square it, it's going to become positive. Okay, now here's another tricky part. Typically, we would put whatever we got here on the other side, right? Plus 9 plus 4 plus 9 plus 4, because what I add to one side, I must add to the other. But, here's the tricky part. I added 9, but it's tricky because if I were to multiply all this out, I really added an 81 in disguise. It looks like I added a 4, but if I were to multiply all this out, I really added a 36 in disguise. So, you have to be careful when you take out a leading coefficient on what you add to the other side. That part's new. I have not showed you a complete the square like this before. Your Math 3 teachers last year may have shown you something like this. Don't know if you would have remembered it. But I have not shown you one like that this year. Have you seen this one before? No, okay, so it is new. All right, so here is what we're gonna do next. We're gonna do 9 double bubble plus 9 double bubble equals whatever that adds up to on the other side. Does anybody know what this adds up to? Anybody have a calculator? Okay, it's okay if you don't. It adds up to 100. This is going to be x plus and x plus, y minus and y minus. Remember, these two numbers should come out to be the same, the plus plus, and these two numbers should come out to be the same, the minus minus, because that's the whole reason we complete the square. Does anybody have these two numbers? Plus plus what? 3 and 3. So we're going to write that as quantity squared. And the y minus minus is, what is it? 2? All right, and then we divide everything by, and it's okay to end up with a fraction. Center is what? -3, 2. And the radius is 10 over 3. Questions? All right, last one, we're going to do the same thing, but we're also going to sketch. And it's a little bit easier, you'll see why. X squared plus y squared minus 10x minus 6y plus 25 equals 0. I'm going to regroup. X squared minus 10x plus y squared minus 6y equals -25. And I'm going to complete the square here and here. And do I have any leading coefficients to factor out? That's why it's a little bit easier. There's no leading coefficients on these. Oh, do you see why it's a circle? Because the leading coefficients here are the same. There's two squares and they both have a leading coefficient of 1. Therefore, it's a circle. I don't have any leading coefficients to factor out. Because they're both 1s, I can go straight to completing the square. X squared minus 10x plus blank plus y squared minus 6y plus blank equals -25 plus blank plus blank. Figure out your blanks quickly. These two will be the same as the two on the right because there's no number to multiply by, so do that now. Now, Mandeep, can you tell me what the blanks are on the left side? Yes.
Is it
25 is correct, and this one would be 9. Everybody agree? And then what I add to one side, I must add to the other. And there's no number to multiply by, so they're both going to be 25 and 9 on this side as well. Now, you don't have to double bubble. You can go straight to quantity squared if you want. Quantity squared plus quantity squared equals 9. X minus, do you guys get 5 and 5? X minus 5, quantity squared. Oscar, what do you get for the y piece? Y minus what? What is it? 3. 3, good. Are any of you guys skipping the minus piece and going straight to the quantity square piece? That's perfectly fine. This is it here. Any of you guys get this answer already? Okay, center is 5 comma, and the radius is 3, and we're going to sketch that. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. And then I'm going to go right 3, left 3, up 3, and down 3. And then do the best to make my shape come out circular and not oval shaped. All right, guys, you need to get an assignment sheet before you leave.